New intro.
Good morning. Good morning. I love that, but just a little technical issue right now. And so I hate for people to have to listen to this, but I'm in the Facebook group and I don't know how to make it so I can see what's going on there.
Click it.
Yeah, nothing's happening. Wait, no, I did that. Click get reminder. Do I have to click that?
Click the actual live.
The picture. Yeah, it's not.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. Oh, wait, there it goes. There it goes. Okay, I'm good. Let me turn the volume off. I got to turn the volume off there so that we don't have
an echo.
Like
an echo. So it's our first time. We've been doing this just over a month in our private group. And then, of course, it does kind of go out to Elite University. It goes on our YouTube and our newsletter. But this is our first time doing it publicly live.
So that's awesome. So welcome to all the friends out there who are watching us in Facebook StreamYard land.
Yes. So that's a big deal. I know it was something that we've been wanting to do for well over a year. It was supposed to be last January. We were supposed to start, and then I don't know what happened. Yeah, like last January. I don't know. And then I moved. So yep. I mean, that was still 6 months. I had done the whole office, so we would have the whole backdrop and, you know, we'd have the whole coffee set up and everything else. And then that just didn't happen. And then I moved. So trying to find a platform, Zoom wasn't, you know, with two people far away. I just couldn't find anything. And then StreamYard came around once all of this happened. And it just seemed to be a perfect platform. So we finally got the nerve to do it.
And here we are. So, you know, it's funny. We've been talking about video, gosh, for so long now, and how important video is to our business and for whatever, whether it's just talking to buyers or sellers or having online classes or and if there's one good thing, I think two good things that COVID has brought to us, which number one would be lots more family togetherness. But number two is all of us who are afraid of video or uncomfortable with video, here we are, we're just doing it. And as time goes on, I get less and less nervous about just the way my hair looks, about the way anything, you know.
The way I sound. I hate that voice. I hate rewatching anything. I know it's super important. Hey, Stephen, thank you for joining us. Our amazing lender with Embrace Home Loans.
Yep, Stephen and Karen Thagard, they are super awesome, and they've supported us even with some video classes during this time, which is really great. So let's get right into it, because this is a topic that I love. I'm super passionate about it, and it's just 7 ways to up your listing game. And I think one of the biggest things to me, and that I always like to teach, is preparation and being prepared so that your credibility and expertise shines through to the sellers. You know, you get that phone call from a seller who said, oh, I want to list my house. It's in, they tell you the neighborhood and you're like, oh goodness, this is like, you know, $750,000. Yay. Or if it's, you know, $250,000, yay. But they say, can you come today at 2? I think that the answer to that is always, I'm so sorry, I've already got an appointment today at 2, but I have tomorrow at 3, you know, Thursday at 11, what works for you? And the reason for that is you need to gather information so that you're prepared when you get to the people's house. That's, to me, the number one thing is the getting of the information. And you can do that any number of ways. You can send the client something in advance to have them fill out that gives you some information about their motivation and why they're moving and what their time frame might be. You can do it by just asking them on the phone. You can ask them when they get to their house. But you really need to get that information, find out what upgrades they've done to their home, so that when you get there, you are fully prepared.
I know we used to have almost like a questionnaire for listings, and it kind of asked a lot of the questions that help both prepare, you know. I have to find that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's in Back Agent or if we need to tweak it a little bit. I know we have a couple of different things, but I don't know if we have the actual questionnaire there now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I have to go look for that. I'm writing that down now because I know that we had that in many of the classes that we've done. I mean, going all the way back to like sales power,
Yep.
that there was that questionnaire that you could do over the phone, and it just asked those important questions, which not only give you the information, but also is probing, why, why.
It gets the seller to start thinking honestly sometimes, what's their motivation? Do they, and then sometimes you get the answer, well, I don't really have to sell. Or you get the answer of, we're being relocated. I need to have the house sold in 3 months,
Right.
whatever it is. And then you can gear how you talk to them about it. And then also with that, you can do a pre-listing packet or presentation, however you want to do it, whether some people are still delivering to the front door. You can do it via email, but just something that gives them a little information about you and a little bit information about Remax and Remax Elite, so that they can look at it in advance. Also, be prepared to leave, whether you call it a listing presentation, a listing folder, something that when I go to someone's house, I don't go through my listing presentation. Everything is in my brain, and depending on how the flow of the meeting goes, I may not cover everything that's in that listing packet. So give them something that they can hold on to that looks professional, which that way they can refer back to it later if they can't remember everything that you've said.
I remember that the one time I did a meeting with somebody, and it was just like a regular vendor, but it definitely brought to mind because they had their whole booklet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they were not having any connection with me. It was all about this book and almost like verbatim of just going through this book. And that's when it dawned on me, as far as like the listing presentation goes, is that was so uncomfortable. It was the longest hour, and there was no conversation, no getting to like what my needs and wants were. It was just this book, and there was no close there. It was just weird. And that's when I realized, you know what? I don't even want the listing presentation. Like, I have it. It's here. There's a bunch of information, testimonials, whatever, all the information that they may want, but it's not, to go through it verbatim. Maybe if they are looking for stats, it's in there, but it's not your book of everything that you're doing. Like, I think the conversation needs to be happening, and then here's other fluff information, stats,
right,
testimonials, whatever you want to call it. And it wasn't until that happened that it made me think of, how was I doing my presentation?
How can I do my presentation differently? Because now I've had this experience where someone was going page by page. Oh, and
am I doing that? I hope I'm not doing that, because that was just awkward. So it definitely gave me a different perspective on those listing books, and now it's more of a leave behind. Right. I need to go over the nitty gritty, those questionnaires, why do they need to move, whatnot, something like that.
So, and part of that is make sure you leave enough time. Make sure your appointment that you schedule, however long it takes you when you're at someone's home, that you schedule that for enough time to get through everything you want to get through. So you're not rushed and saying to them, oh, I have another appointment, I have to go. You want to make them feel like they're the most important person at that moment, so make sure you have enough time, and make sure that you have a set routine. So whatever it is that you do, that's your routine, and it almost just becomes, natural. You don't have to think about, oh, this is next, and not that the way I do it is the best way. I'll just tell you what my routine is. I get, prior to we talk, I get the information. I do all of my research so that I know on the top of my head, I've got the stats for their neighborhood. I've got the stats just for real estate in general in Brevard County. Because when you have the stats, I'm telling you, if you sound like the expert, you are the expert, and people like that. They feel like you know what you're talking about. But I walk in the house, I say hello, depending on if I've met them prior or not prior. And I just say that usually they say, do you want to sit down or do you want to look at the house first? And I always say, let's take a look around the house, show me, everything that's important. And I do always say, tell me what you love, what you think the best 3 features of the house are. And we're also going to talk about the mechanics, so I understand the age of the roof and the HVAC and the water heater. But also I want to know, if you could change one thing about the house that you don't like, what would it be? And then before I let them talk, I say, the reason why I ask that is I want to be prepared if it comes up as an objection with a buyer. That way I'm not going to point that out to anybody, but if you think it's something that you would like to change, a buyer may see the same thing. And so I want to know what that is. So then we go through the house. I take a look. I take a lot of notes. I come with a form that I fill out. We have it in Back Agent. We have a couple of different options, actually, depending on what you like. So we go through the whole thing. And as we're doing that, you're having conversation too. You're building rapport. That honestly, when somebody is going to hire you to list their house, your presentation is important. What company you're with is important. You're important. The price is important. But if they feel like they know and they like and they trust you, they're going to hire you. And I think that building the rapport, even if it's somebody you've never met, as you're going from room to room, and it's not just about, oh my gosh, you have these beautiful blinds. Wow, how much did those cost you? Then maybe tell a story. Oh yeah, I put those in my home, a couple of years ago, kind of so that you can link to them and make a story. Make sure another thing is to do your homework. I think I already said that. Make sure you know your stats, you know the neighborhood that it's in, you've done research, you bring that information with you when you go. I am. So we go through, we talk about the whole house, and then we sit down at the table. And as we're sitting down at the table, again, this is the time to build rapport. To me, it depends, then you're starting to get the feel for the person, the type of person that they are, and you want to mirror that and try and answer the questions that you think they're going to want to have answered. I usually break it down into 3 things. I talk about RE/MAX as a whole, RE/MAX International. I talk about RE/MAX Elite and how we have more agents in our office that do more transactions than any other office in Brevard County, and why that's important, and then I talk about me, and depending on the person, sometimes I tell the story. Sometimes I say, I'm a single mom, 2 boys, one's in college. I have, this is what I do full time. I have a family to support. And so my goal is, 1, to make sure I sell your house, but to sell it in a timely manner that works for your time frame. So that we can get you to the end goal. And then maybe that's the time you even talk again about what their end goal is.
Because I think that part's important, knowing their time frame. And I think right now, I would think people that are listing their homes almost would have to, or we're just in different times. But I think if you have that questionnaire and understand their needs and wants and what that end game is and what the time frame is, that'll help you with that whole reaching agreement at the end of your appointment, for sure.
Right. So, I talk about those 3 important things, and then I talk about what I do that sets me apart, or maybe doesn't set me apart. I think most people are using professional photography these days, but I talk about the professional photography. I talk about how I market the property. At that point, we discuss whether or not they want an open house or not, and I discuss with them my feeling on it, and for me personally, I'm open to open houses, but I explain to them that the open house is usually the neighbors looking, or people that are out and about. They haven't found an agent yet. They're driving around for something to do. They may be ready to buy a house, but they're not quite there. And it's another way for us to make contact with people and to get more buyers and sellers. And then I let them make the decision. I try to give them the pros and cons to both. And I'm very clear about a lot of things. So generally, I don't usually do an open house. I generally have another agent from the office do it. And I explain why that is, but I don't want them to have the expectation that I'm the one that's going to be there, unless I am, maybe it's a listing that I feel it's important that I am there, or maybe it's a listing where I feel it's important that there's 2 agents there because it's big enough that we should have 2 people there, or I think there's going to be a lot of traffic. But I don't ever let them think it's going to be me if chances are it's not.
And I think having those expectations of the entire process of selling their home is important. I know we have a couple things, but I do know sometimes we have that realtor cap on, and we're not thinking for the consumer and what's going to happen. Even having something, going around, what can they do to freshen the home, taking the personal effects down, start packing those away, what a home inspection is going to look like, what the time frame of just the full expectations of selling.
Of the process, honestly, of the process. I mean, I even break it down to, we use a showing service. It's called Showing Time. And this is how it's going to work. And the reason why, now I always bring my phone in. And the reason why I bring my phone in is because I try to schedule the photo shoot while we're sitting there. So I pull up my photographer's website. But so what I'll say to them is, so I use a showing service. It's called Showing Time. The reason why I do, and I'll say, you see, I have my phone with me now, but it's not on. I only have it so that when we get to schedule photos and any other appointments we need to have, I have my calendar right here and we can do it. But I other than that, I'm not going to look at my phone. And the reason for the showing service is I could be here with you for an hour and a half. And if someone wants to show one of my listings and they're trying to get in touch with me, I'm going to ignore them for an hour and a half, and I don't want to ignore them. So I explain Showing Time, and I use it in a couple of different ways. So if they're super tech savvy and I know they have a smartphone, and I know they're going to download the app and they're going to get a text and they're going to respond, I explain to them, you'll be able to get the app, you'll get the text. And then I say, do you want a text? Do you want an email? Do you want a phone call? I would say, 90% of them say, I'll take a text. And then I explain, you get the text. You either say yes, no, or schedule for another time. But if it's someone who's not tech savvy, I set up Showing Time to where I get the request and then I call them and ask them if it's okay. Because some people don't want to hear from a stranger. They want to hear from me, and I just base that based on the client, whatever works best for them. I explain to them how the feedback works, and I'm very upfront here as well, because we all know that's a big ticket item these days. Nobody gives feedback. Feedback is horrible. Blah 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 blah. I set that expectation right now, and I say they will all get a feedback request. It will go to them 3 times before it stops, and if they don't respond, I will follow up with them with a phone call. But I'm telling you this, if you get no feedback, it means they're not interested. There is a school of thought that there's some sort of liability to giving feedback, and the agent's liable for something, so we may not get feedback. Or they are thinking of an offer and they don't want to reveal their hand in the feedback. They don't want to say in the feedback, my client loves it, the price is perfect. I mean, because now we have a negotiation if we get a deal. So I think as long as people understand what the expectation.
Why my husband does not go car shopping with me.
Right.
Like, you ruined my entire thing.
Right. We've talked about that before. Yeah. So, so I explain how the feedback works so that they're not caught off guard or their expectations are wrong or different. I also explain what we're going to do when we get an offer. And then people will say, oh, I'm not going to consider giving anybody closing costs, or I'm not going to consider this, let's consider everything, because if we start with the obstacles, we're going to get less showings, we're going to get less people, we're going to get less interest. Then when we get the request, then we determine how to handle it. And then I'll give them an example. $200,000 house, buyer wants $5,000 towards closing costs, and they offer you $205,000 to offset that closing cost. Would you accept that? Oh, well, maybe. Yeah, so let's not say no to anything until we get it. And then we get the opportunity to say no, and we can say no all day long if that's what makes you happy. I wouldn't recommend you say no all day long, but we could do that.
Well, now I think it's totally different. We're just in a different
completely.
And I know we just went over that on the listing agreements and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I try to kind of, as I'm sitting there, talk to them about everything that's happened. The one thing that I don't do until they've signed on the dotted line, and I will say things like, oh yes, you'll need to move that or put that away or take those photos, but I don't go through the whole checklist of what to do until they've signed on the dotted line. And they'll say, oh, should I move the furniture? Oh, should I pack an ice? And I will point blank say to them, well, if you hire me, then we're going to go over what you need to do to get your house ready to be sold. I'm pretty straightforward and tell people like it is, but I'm not going to give them my checklists and my recommendations so they can hire someone else who doesn't have a checklist and recommendations.
True.
Yeah.
I think we even have that in our listing presentation.
Yeah. So sometimes I just take that out and I have like a post listing thing where I give them, now here's all the stuff we need.
So we could almost even break up our listing presentation into a pre-listing and then
a once they've signed on the dotted line. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Actually, I've never quite done it like that, but I do give them sort of something separate after they've signed.
Yeah, that's a good idea because we could add in expectations, timeline, even information about home inspections and stuff like that. That's a good idea. So we'll have to gather that information
and do that. That would be awesome. And then we would have that in back agent. I also explained to them about the photographer. The photographer is going to come, and we're in a time of COVID. They don't need extra people there. I don't need to be there to be in the photographer's way. So I tell them that the photographer's going to come, you're going to let them in, or if it's vacant, they're going to come in on the lockbox and they're going to do their thing because they're the professional. They don't need me telling them what angle to take. But if I feel like there's something important I don't want them to miss out on, when I place the order, there is a place where you can put notes for what's going to happen. I also go into talking about that here it is common and almost always what's called an as-is contract. I explain to them what means. The buyer they're buying it as is, but they have the right to inspect and cancel. And they get this many days to do it. And I say, but something may come up that you don't know about, that you don't realize, that even though it's as is, do we want them to cancel because we're not going to fix it, because we're going to have the same problem potentially with the next buyer. And I also go on to explain, and even though it's as is and their choices per the contract are cancel or continue, 95% of all buyers ask for you to repair something. And then but it's as is. Understood, but it's just what happens. So I want you to know before it does, so you're not surprised. And then again, we have the option. Agree to the fix, say no to the fix, or agree to some of the fixes. But it's all a negotiation. It's all a give and take. But if we're kind of hitting all of this important steps up front, educating the seller, then their expectation level or being caught off guard later is not going to happen. And I think they appreciate that because they feel like, oh, wow, you explained the process to us. It wasn't just, because here's the thing. I had somebody recently say to me, I don't really know even what realtors do. I don't know what agents do. She thought she had found her own buyer on her own from a neighborhood contact who said, oh, this person wants to buy back in. I said, great, do your deal. If it doesn't work out, come back, we'll talk. Well, that went sideways. And then she was like, oh, I think I kind of get an idea now. Because it's not just about pricing it and putting it in the MLS. That's
doors, right?
Right. That's the easy part. That's the easy part for us because we're the professionals. We do it every day. We know how to price a property. But from that point till closing, that's where all the hurdles happen. And I like to communicate what it is during that time frame that I'm doing to help keep this deal together. Right. So the things, again, just to up your listing game, gather all the information, leave a listing folder or some information for them that they can refer to about how great you are, your testimonials, your reviews, your background. I have a whole sort of resume kind of thing that I leave that talks about what I've done in the past and what I'm doing now. I leave information about Remax International, and I leave information about Remax Elite. Make sure you allocate enough time. You have a set routine. So whatever it is, if you're new to the business, it'll come. You'll figure it out. If you've been doing it forever, sometimes you need to tweak it, change it. You might catch yourself in a listing appointment and go, oh, why did I do that? I need to change that. So make sure you're always working on that. Make sure you're building a rapport with the people. Do your homework. And then at the end, once you've communicated everything to them, have your listing paperwork with you so that you're ready to sign right then and there. Sign the listing agreement, schedule your photos, and plan for when it's going to come on the market.
And then what's our weekly activity for the week?
So in light of school going back, which I don't, some people I think started today. Orange County started today. Brevard County starts in 2 weeks. You guys started last week?
Kind of. I don't know. So it started on the 29th, and then we had virtual or traditional. Then that I don't know what happened. Maybe too many kids. So then they added a middle hybrid, and then based on their last name, and we still don't have all the classes. So
yeah, we have a hybrid option too.
I don't really know what's going on. I just keep checking emails, and I just tell Jess to log in every day to see what's
going on. So the weekly activity is, if you have an amazing teacher in your life, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a school teacher, it could be anything. It could be an agent friend that has taught you things. It can be a marketing person who has taught you amazing things through the years about marketing that we would have never had. Reach out to that person and let them know how much you appreciate them. And that comes back to our whole, contacting people, having a purpose. Reach out to them, let them know, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for what you've done through the years,
Right. And then I thought this was the words of wisdom: was a mediocre teacher tells, a good teacher explains, a superior teacher demonstrates, and a great teacher inspires. So I just want you to go out and inspire people. And I think just like what we've been saying is being mindful, but, trying to inspire people to be the best and just not focusing on all the noise and distractions that are out there right now.
Which kind of just made me remember this. So here's the thing about Remax Elite, and just a shameless plug about why I've been here since 2007. From the very beginning, the other agents in this office have always been willing to share and inspire and help others. I mean, I got a text the other day from somebody who said, hey, who does a lot of listing and selling in this neighborhood? I have some questions. I have a buyer. And I texted her that agent, and she called that agent, and the agent answered all her questions, helped her out. I mean, it's just, you don't always get that in a big company or in this competitive business. So I'm thankful to the agents here who have all helped over the years to inspire and share and teach all of us.
No, I agree. And I think that it's just such a great culture when you have agents that are willing to give back and teach what they're good at, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's huge because you don't have that everywhere. And I know I have not had that in every place I've been at before. So
exactly.
And it's so exciting. So it's Month of Miracles, and going over, all the pictures, because
you see it.
Yes. And going back so this would have been our 10 years. So I think my first, I started in November, and then that following year was when we started doing the Unos, dough raiser. And we started off, do you remember, in the little bar, right? So the little
I
bar,
do remember.
A couple booths and going through. So we're going to have to do it. It's our 10th year doing it.
We have Lisa, what was Lisa? Jimmy V and Lisa. What was Lisa's name? Wasn't she a guest bartender?
Yes. Yeah. They had me be, bartender.
Lisa Moldovan, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I'm like, I I don't really drink, so I really did not want to be a bartender. So they just had me put like garnishes or whatever. Yeah, but that was so. I don't know. Just going back the last 10 years, trying to find photos and from all the events and how we went from that little teeny thing, and then we've taken over, the entire restaurant, and they've been so. I mean, they know we do it every single year, and this would have been our 10th year, which was pretty exciting. And I think we raised like $9,000 last year just from that one night. And
I know,
because our champion of the office, Lacey, who doesn't like to
who doesn't like the notoriety, but Lacey Ross has, if it wasn't for her.
No, she, I mean, and I think even Jeannie was saying like, well, Justin's kids wins everything. And it's like, that's because you can't even get into the restaurant without her, where's your wallet? Let me have all your cash. That's X amount of tickets. Cause she did that to Leo, and Leo sits down all confused. He's like, that was like the lotto for the
right. Well, it's either Justin's kids winning or Erica Brown and Christina Babylonia, the two sisters with a bunch of kids. I think Christina's daughter won like the drinking basket last year. She's like 12 or something. I can't remember. Or it was the tattoo basket. I can't remember. But or they win too, because there's so many of them and they're so willing to give and buy the tickets.
Yeah, and they buy it virtually. I'm not. We're not 100% sure what that'll look like, but CMN needs more now more than ever because companies are not able to do all these big fundraisers like normally they do. So I'm glad Lacey's like, nope, we're still doing it. I've already sold 100 raffle tickets and we're just going to go for it. So we're getting the date for the dough raiser, which means you could still go. You can do pickup. So we're just date for that. And then we'll probably do a StreamYard with all these option. So we are still, now we're going to be looking for baskets and doing the 50-50, and we'll just do it live. It'll be a little different, but we still want to raise the money. So
exactly.
There will be another challenge, which is, I think we've all been facing different challenges in the last, gosh, I can't believe it's been five.
I know.
Months.
I know.
That just seems crazy.
Amazing, right? Amazing.
So we'll stay tuned for that because that is coming. It is still happening, and Lacey's not going to let a pandemic ruin our money.
Right, ruin our fundraising for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So.
Yeah, so that's awesome, and so we'll have all that information. Of course, future shows, put them in the comments. Happy to cover them, and until next week, wake up, kick ass, and repeat, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, everyone.